From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Library of Congress and this special presentation of African American spirituals of the Civil War. My name is Nicholas Brown, and I'm a concert producer with the Music Division, and it is my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the Chief of the Music Division, Susan Vida, to the historic Coolidge Auditorium. This year we are focusing on American music, and specifically how we can tell the story of America through song. And today's presentation is particularly poignant towards that goal because we are celebrating the 150th anniversary of the Civil War. And today's topic of the African American spirituals tradition is one that is infused throughout every genre of American music. Without the spirituals tradition and the roots music tradition that came out of the 19th century, there would be no American music. And this is a tradition that has touched all kinds of music all over the world. And we hope that you enjoy this three-part presentation today. We have on stage already the Baltimore City College High School Choir. They're conducted by Linda R. Hall, and their assistant conductor will be leading the workshop with Dr. Norris. Their assistant conductor is Marcus Smith. And Dr. Norris, Dr. James Weldon Norris, is the director of choruses at Howard University, and arguably, and certainly in my opinion, the leading scholar of the African American spirituals tradition in this country and in the world. So we're very, very thrilled to have him. The spirituals tradition has been in focus here at the library dating back to 1927, when Nathaniel Dett brought the Hampton Institute Choir here to the library. And this is a highlight in our history here of the concert series, and we're very pleased to welcome these wonderful artists to continue the tradition here today. So without further ado, Dr. James Weldon Norris.
told me to shout, and I done that too.
Well, I done what she told me to do. Talking about
Lord, I done,
Lord,
Lord, I done, Lord, I done what you told me to do, Lord.
Very, very nice. Now, just one or two things, because I know that, again, this is all out of your age bracket. This, you see, there's a time, we will discuss this today, that anything was considered spirituals that African Americans sang in a certain period. But this was an old church tune. And how African Americans had to go to church is a whole topic that we could be here for about 2 days discussing. It's just that involved. And this is an old church tune that I learned. See, I was born in Washington, but raised in South Carolina. And my granddaddy was a Baptist preacher, so that's why I learned to sing spirituals, going around with him. And he and Sister Picoro sing over here, and Sister Fernandez sing over there, and learn to sing the idiom. Now, the language itself is like learning a foreign language. There's no language in the world that you sing the way you speak it. And it's the same thing with spirituals. But the strange thing about singing spirituals is dependent upon what part of the country you were from, because people have different things, and they pronounce them different ways. Like even today in South Carolina, you pronounce O-N-I-O-N, you put on hamburgers as what? Onions, right? We say onions. It depends on where you're from. So the thing is, Lord. Now, it's like learning a whole, I was teaching this to, some spirituals to a choir in Washington. They said, but it's like learning a whole new language. They said, yes. Let's take the first word, Lord. Not L-O-R-D, but L-A-W-D, Lord. Lord. And the thing is, every time you come to a consonant, raise it. So that's how they got the what? The pulse. Spirituals on a pulse, just like European motets are. 15th century motets especially, your Scandinavia, on a pulse. There's a pulse all the way through, so there's Lord. And you write to the consonant, and you feel the ends and the M's right here on the diaphragm. I done. Say it and feel it from your breath. Come on. Say done. See what happens? See, it says, Lord, I done. Lord, I done. Now, what you? Now, sure, we say European music is what you, but what you? What you told me never to, as you said, very good, what to do, right? But beautifully done. We'll try with just the beginning, right? And I do it just a little faster. I didn't put a tempo mark in when I had this, I sent this to the publisher. But if we do it, we just say, Lord, ready? This is where the choir come in, ready? Bass come, we're talking about ready? 1, 2. Talking about right now. Bass is ready? 1, second. Talking about Lord. And Lord, I done, bass, well, I done what she told me to do. You were right on the right track, and it sounds very good, and you're very nice. Congratulations. He taught me about that to do what another choir did. It was about 30 minutes. You're very right. Okay, let's go to the next one. And anything you want to ask me, feel free. And you have to remind me of time. When I start with this, it'll be midnight and I won't even know it. Yes.
That A natural or A flat. What was the?
Oh, good. Oh, now, I'm glad you asked that. Frequently, African Americans sing, and see, they didn't know one note from the other. A lot of them in church could read shape notes, and a lot of them could not. And then they would do things by the ear, but they never missed the rhythms. So the A flat, or the A there, has to be what we call ambiguous tonality. It was between the A flat and the A. It was almost like a quarter tone, but if I wrote it as a quarter tone, you wouldn't be able to sing it. So see what happens, and like when the altos come in, I show you. Sing the line again, Lord, I done, right? And if you play an A natural and A flat for me, And you have it in key raised. Okay, now, and then play Lord. I didn't play the line for them. Just play the soprano line. Dun, 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 see, and between those two, dun, dun, yeah, it was between there. See, because what? We are told to get it on pitch. Certain way you open the mouth and form the vowel sounds. See, right? They didn't think about it. They sang from the heart. They weren't concerned about where it was 8 flat 8 after. They're singing from the heart. Singing hard. And then what? Altos. Even we've seen before. Let me show you again in altos. Let's do that again. Let's put the beginning talking about. Not sure what I mean. Ready? Talking about altos. Raise your hands for me. Oh, good. Ready? Good alto section. I love altos. Take y'all home with me. Ready? Okay. Talking about bass again. Ready? 1, 2, and talking about. Altos. From here. Lord, ready, and Lord, I done. Yeah, see, you're the important thing they're not concerned about tonight. It should just kind of stick out like a sore thumb. Ready? Again, ready, bass 1, 2, and talking about Lord, I done. Lord, bass ready. Lord, I done. Lord, I done. I done what you told me to do. See, basically, you represent the deacons and the trustees of the church. You were the big cheese, and you sat in one section of the church by yourself. And what? They would come to church on Sunday, wear their best clothes, because what? It was an affair. Church was not only a religious experience, but a social experience. We had preaching once a month. So you saw friends you hadn't seen, for a month. And you wear your best clothes. And you would wear always deacons wore white shirts, very highly starched. And they wore vests. And they were singing, prancing around with that vest. Now, many of them could sing one note. Monotones out of this world, but they sang with all of the fervent that they had. Well, nothing new. New England hymn did the same thing. New England, they can sing monotones too, but they would. But that's the reason why they ain't flat ain't that. Okay. I told you I'd sit y'all down. Don't take all your time. Okay. Now, do you have probably any idea of when that song, "Oh Freedom," probably was first heard, when it became popular, and why it became popular? This is near the end of the Civil War. Near the end of the Civil War, when we had a lot of African American soldiers, first from the Union Army, fighting in the war, not from the South. That's said we didn't have Confederate African American soldiers. We did, but that's a whole another subject we could have 2 days on. But we had, but "Oh Freedom," the same thing. And see, the thing about it, the spirituals are just about what you really meant for them to be. What you did was very, very well, because you expressed very much the words of what you wanted in freedom. Now, Larry's a critic, a musicologist, three, who doubted vehemently. He said that no such thing as indigo spiritual existed. One of them was a trustee of Howard University. Every time I look in the trustee room and see his picture, I want to draw X's all over it. They said that we learned these from European. Now, I don't have the time to go into that, because spirituals are folk songs, and folk songs have certain characteristics that are traditional the world over anyway. But when they learn this, they sing, and you can sing it like this. For instance, you take the spiritual "My Lord, What a Morning," M-O-R-N-I-N-G, M-O-U-R-I-N, what a morning or what a morning, means two different things. So your freedom, so it can be sung then what? Like in church, but in a slow ring shot, where they would get together in a ring and they would shout counterclockwise to these songs with your rhythm section. But let's try this again with the pulse. Freedom, oh freedom over me. And then just follow my hand with it, the pulse with it. And I want you to move with it. Move with it. Move with me. When mind moving for me, left, right, left. Ready? Left. Now, oh freedom, man. Oh, freedom. And now, oh, freedom. Go to the end right now. Oh, freedom over me. Big thing. Over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave. And do what? And go home to my Lord and be free. No, and no more moaning. No more moaning. Good, and no more moaning over and bass and over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Fine, you see, that's more in the early slave tradition. I mean, the real slave tradition. What happens is, what we discussed later on, in latter years, we did become influenced by European traditions, but there's a reason for that. You have to understand the reason for it. And to me, we began to interject too many European traditions, and it began to destroy the flavor of the true spiritual. Once I was visited by a conductor of the choir, one of the service academies. He said, Dr. Norris, he says, my students want to learn to sing work songs and spirituals. And I want you to teach me how to do it. I had the same experience in Poland, same experience in Russia, all over the world. Teach me how to do this. I can't teach you how to do that. I can expose you to it. It is something you have to have been brought up in, and I was. It becomes a part of you. Because it has to be authentic. So this is what I'm saying. The all authentic. That's the authentic spiritual. Not so much the European influence, but that pulse and the rhythm. Like with freedom, they've never hold a vowel sound over the freedom. Freedom, go right to the what? M, where the pulse was again. Freedom, oh freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home. The important things they knew, the parts of speech and stuff, you got a vowel. And to go home, and the accompaniment to my Lord and be free. But what you did was absolutely beautiful. I really congratulate you. Okay. Now, that one work we could talk about an hour about. Hall Johnson, as you know, who arranged that, to me is and remains to be the greatest arranger of the Negro spiritual work song, I think, that was ever. As I tell many audiences the world over, what Beethoven did for the symphony, the string quartet, the piano concerto, Hall Johnson did for the African American spiritual and work song. But see, little things about Hall Johnson, we didn't know he was a very well educated musician. When I first heard Shirley Verrett sing spirituals, I said, God, this Dave knows what he's doing. And Shirley, Miss Verrett and I got to be pretty good friends. And I said, Shirley, who taught you to do spirituals? She said, Hall Johnson. He also taught me all my French and German. I said, knock me down. And this man, you know, he died tragically back in 71. And one of the greatest things that I was touring with, I was with a choir in Sumter, South Carolina, called Morris College, before I came to Howard. And we were on tour in Abyssinia Baptist Church, and he had sent word that he was coming to hear me perform, and I was just on cloud 9, 10, 15. I wasn't drinking either. I mean, 9, I was walking around. And he didn't show, and I was so worried that, and then he died in a fire. He had music everywhere in his room, and he smoked in bed all the time, and that's how he died. But this man understood the what? Authenticity of the spiritual. Now this means that what? He, along with people like Wendell Whalum, of course, who died recently, but R. Nathaniel Dett, John Work, William Levi Dawson, all these people, when they went to schools, and the African American spiritual became what a choral art form. And they went to school to learn music. The only white music school that would accept them was Oberlin College. And finally they began to go to others. So they took all the European harmony they learned, all the counterpoint and everything, and put it into the spiritual. Why? Because that's the only thing that could get published. And still today, in many things people sing, if you let us know it's African American, they feel it's what it's inferior. And it wasn't. There are arrangements of spirituals to me that equal to that of the great Franz Schubert, Johannes Brahms, who's my favorite composer. His name's on my license plate of my car. If you see Brahms, you know it's me, okay? But it's just that. But it was considered inferior. And that's the one thing I like about your radio station in Baltimore, WBJZ. They will play music of African American composers, more so than any other of the classical stations. So this man, they would take all their learning and things and put it into the spiritual. But the thing that's unique and great about Hall Johnson, they did not destroy the flavor, the texture, the very essence of the Negro spiritual. But they did it. Now, for instance, look at that bass line I've been scoring in the front line. I mean, come on, basses. All those chromatics, Mozartian, sure, Wagnerian, yes, even the French, but very foray. And it is difficult to sing, too. Now, black folks working in the field don't think about singing half steps, because they sing pentatonic scales. But it is pretty, you have to admit, right? It's beautiful, okay? So that's some of the things you just wouldn't find in the authentic spiritual, but they put it in there because they're training, and it works very well. But now look at the words. I've been rebuked. What does that mean? I've been rebuked, yes. It's a contraction. I've been rebuked, and I've been scorned, right? Now, as I tell a lot of audiences, tell my students all the time, you haven't lived long enough to be rebuked and scorned. When you keep on living, you're going to be rebuked and scorned a whole lot in your life, okay? And I've been talked about, shows you born. But then, as you said, the second verse has what all get a different reading because they almost do a lot of little sermons. There's trouble all over this world. And then the third one says, well, ain't gonna lay my religion down. Because that was a strong affirmation of what was to come in years. So I've been rebuked and I've been scorned. Let's take a look at that. You want to sing for me? Let's take the reason to that. Raise that step for me. Would you give that spread? Don't rush the words. Just keep them moving. As again, and there is no way that you can sing a spiritual the way it's on the page. They had to put it on the page where to get it there to get it published. But in other words, they expected what you're supposed to know what to do with it. And that's it. So again, always think of the old lady in the rocking chair, okay? A little old lady, okay? I've been rebuked ready now and think you've been, someone's hurt your feelings so bad. It's a sorrow song. It's a sorrow song. Du Bois speaks of these great in his book. When he says Jubilee Hall. They're sorrow songs. I've been rebuked and I've been scorned. Ready? And I've been rebuked and I've been scorned. Yes, I've been rebuked and I've been scorned. what is the effect of the word children there? You have any idea? Huh? Not about children. It's children. Yeah, you're right to be children. But why is that word there? What does it mean there? Does it have anything to do with I've been beaten, I've been scorned? No, just an affirmation. Like we say, I got a mule. Lord, I can. It's not an application of the deity, it's just an expression. Children, I've been rebuked. Now, I don't know how many of you, your grandmama tell you, Sally, come here. Sally, I said, come here. And that third time, you're going to run, aren't you? You know, and because so the emphasis. So the children is just an expression of emphasis. I've been rebuked, I've been scorned. Children. Let's try it again. Ready? Ready, two, ready,
I've been rebuked and I've been scorned.
affirmation, yes.
I've been rebuked and I've been scorned. Children. I've been rebuked and I've been scorned. I've been talked about. Show you wrong.
Yes, yeah, I've been talking, sure as you're born. Now, I've been rebuked and I've been scorned. Scorned. In other words, you talked about. But think about it. What gets you through that is your strong affirmation in your faith. And that's what got these two. I never forget once doing a special telecast of Jewish Holocaust for the first one, Kid in the Center. And the actress, Miss Helen Hayes, came to me afterwards. I did the same spiritual. And she said, Dr. Norris, why is it that in the darkest hour of despair, there always seems to be some hope in the Negro spiritual? She said, but in Jewish songs, they're kind of just sad, sad, sad. I said, Miss Hayes, those rays of hope got us through those times, and they're getting us through today. The people, because whether you know it or not, we still have a lot of the same problems, just on a different socioeconomic level. And we need these to get us through. And he says, I've been talked about, sure as you're born. In the words of a very famous lady in Washington, who's head of the Jewish Defense League, Children's Defense League. She said, you don't want to be talked about. Say nothing, do nothing, and be nothing. So when they talk about you, don't worry about it. Say, you try to do it as well as I did. Okay. And look at the second one says, well, there's trouble all over this world, right? But it all leads to that third verse, is what? Ain't gonna lay my what? Sing for me, ain't pitch for me, ain't ready enough. Ain't
Gonna lay my religion down.
no.
Ain't gonna lay my religion down. Ain't gonna lay my religion down.
The reason I love this picture so much, I was very fortunate to have done this about 15 times with Alvin Ailey. Alvin Ailey didn't see it. And we have a program also this afternoon, and the version we will do is the version with Alvin Ailey. But if you think about those words, you're young. Probably not one of you here is more than, 15 or 16 years old, if you're that old. When you sing this, 3 years from now, when you become 20, when you become 21, you'll have an altogether different view of this. Because you will have lived long enough to understand these words. Right now, to you, maybe a lot of words, music, notes, and rhythms. But then you understand the words. And you can understand then how this old lady felt sitting in that chair. How you felt then what? Being kept out of a place because of your color. How you felt not being able to sit on a certain part of the bus because of your color. And how you felt as being treated second rate. But remember, God made you and one you like you, so you're always first rate. Any questions you have for me? Take up enough of your time. Any questions? I'm glad to. I don't know which time I have. Like I said, take up most of your time.
See if the audience has a question.
Okay.
If anyone has questions in the audience, just raise your hand and we'll get a microphone to you.
Dr. Norris, could you repeat what you said to the chorus concerning, you mentioned a lady that concerning the spiritual Ivan Buke, but I didn't catch the name. Was it Shirley Barrett?
Shirley Barrett, yes.
Okay, and what, could you just say again what you said about her?
I heard her sing a Kennedy Center performance. She did Old Glory, which, as you know, Hall Johnson wrote for names, Senior Moment. He was the first black band to sing in the Metropolitan Opera House, as well as I knew it. Not Roland Hayes. Robert McFerrin. He wrote that for Robert McFerrin, yes. And his Bobby is more popular than his father now. And when she sang, I said, this lady knows what she is doing. Because I've heard, and you see, the solo spiritual, it came into being after around, about 16, the 17, the dates mixed up, 1873, when the Fifth Jubilee singers first went to Europe, and then after that, solo singers began to take over, and they sang them in concert versions. And of course, a lot of them then wanted to be very popular. For instance, like Black Patty. One of the most gorgeous voices you wanted to hear, but the only way she could be heard was to sing about minstrel shows. And we think that minstrel shows are obnoxious these days. We don't think about them. But they did serve a purpose because they gave them a chance to perform. And when they sang, they had to show all the elements they could of their voice. And they sang the spiritual because the Northerners, especially during the Civil War, became very much liking the spiritual. And they got popular for it. So Miss Barrett sang. So when I got my chance to really meet her and to know her, because when I was dean of the music department at Howard, I was trying to attract her to Howard as a teacher, and almost did. the art department didn't have a place for husband; they wanted to come as a couple, and we talked about that. I said, Miss Barrett, sure, who taught you to sing spiritual? She said, Hall Johnson. I said, I thought so. She said, he also taught me all my German and my French. He was a fantastic human being. And he taught all the nuances of the spiritual. And that's the thing. The spiritual have nuances like any what. The last time I took my choir to Russia 3 years ago, and we sang with a Russian choir in St. Petersburg, and we had to learn this word in Russian, but we had to learn the nuances of the words, because you said them one way to mean one thing, and another way to mean another. But the same thing with spirituals. And that's what she knew what she was doing. And that's the reason I think of him so, his arrangements to me are just the greatest, period. As far as the flavor and the authenticity of the choral spiritual. Hope that answered your question. Yes.
Good morning. I'd like to ask you to explain the importance of keeping the Negro spiritual alive.
Well, there was one commitment I made when I came to Howard. I said, as long as I'm here, it will stay alive. Because you don't hear the Negro spiritual these days as much because of the great, our culture, our great culture now of praise music, and especially gospel music. Be that it may, this may be our present day culture, but the Negro spiritual is our heritage. And I think we should always keep it alive. Number one, if you look at just the poetry in the Negro spiritual, the poetry, and you have to understand that most Negro spirituals are embedded in what the Bible, biblical characters, and go through a list of them. It's really unusual how they consider biblical characters and what they thought of them, and the favorite ones and the ones they disfavored. Like today, when I speak of Go Down Moses, what female did we call Moses? Harriet Tubman. Who was the devil? Pharaoh. Another devil was, so the metaphor is all over the place. The worst thing could happen to a slave is to be sold, and family broken up, but sold and moved further south. Canaan. I searched the Bible all over the place trying to find a reference to Canaan. There's only one I found. But Canaan became what? A place of freedom. A place to want to go to a better life. So the whole thing in the what? In spirituals is the black man's then, what now, if I use the black, if you're offended, I'm sorry. Since I'll be 78 years old next week, I mean, and I've been colored. I've been colored, I've been a Negro, I've been Afro-American, and I've been everything on all these different things. I'm just a human being. But what I'm saying is that, I don't know what I was saying about this. But it's something that if you understand the literature, for instance, wade in the water meant one thing to some of us. You know what? And that was wading in a river, getting up to north. Usually it was the Mississippi, but also you cannot stand on the shore in light. You got to get out there and leave it. See what I'm saying? The different meanings. So therefore, I think there are meanings all over the place. There are sermons all over the place that we need to look at and appreciate the beautiful poetry of the African American slave. Okay.
Dr. Norris?
Yes.
When I was growing up, the music that we heard today was always referred to as Negro spirituals.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I got older, I saw African American spirituals, which is on the program today.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to concerts where it's characterized as American spiritual. So is there a correct characterization of the music?
Oh boy. You want me to be here at 12 o'clock tonight, huh? Yes and no. Number one, first thing, you'd have to define what a spiritual was. You see, at a certain time, we consider anything a spiritual. But I think I prefer to use the old term, the Negro spiritual, as that's what it was called when it was done. To say an American spiritual, no, because what? Most of us, some of you might have seen the television show I did for History Detectives on supposedly the first published book of Negro spirituals, and they did change my words because I said that the book was not all Negro spirituals. We consider anything as spiritual. But when I was talking to my host at the time who were doing the taping, I mentioned white spiritual. He said, "What do you mean white spiritual?" I said, "Yeah, white spirituals." He said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Where are you from?" And he said, "Kentucky." He said, "Give me an example." I said, "Well, you show me something you sang then when you were in church then." And I sang a tune for him. He said, "That is a spirit." I said, "Yes, that was a white spiritual. But you understand it had a different purpose, though, from the Negro spiritual. They had some similarities and things in general, but it was a different thing altogether." So I still prefer to use the term Negro spiritual. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
One last question, if anyone has one. Okay. If we could have a warm round of applause for Dr. Norris and the Baltimore City College Choir.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.